Now I address some issues that are also of concern for the well-loved high school students in our audience. Nationwide, your peers are afflicted by anxiety, vulnerable to drugs, addicted to social media, and seeking counseling in record numbers. You are affected by these influences, but for you, the good news outweighs all of that. You know you are children of God, a uniquely divine heritage. God loves you. He is a powerful mentor, and He has promised to help you if you but seek Him in the way He is taught. Establish in your mind and your personal priorities the powerful truth that you are a beloved child of God. His love endows you with the self-respect, the strength, and the motivation to move against whatever problems you face in your life. And never forget that His servants love you. We love you. I just received a valuable letter from a 16-year-old girl who lives in a state where we have few members. I will call her Amy. Her letter is important because she expresses feelings that are common in young people all across the church. Amy's lengthy letter includes these portions. I've asked one of your peers to read her words.
I feel like I sometimes get inconsistent and confusing messages from the church. In my day-to-day life, I see members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on social media act as if they aren't part of this gospel. I feel like I'm the only young woman in my ward who sees the things I see wrong with the world. I truly don't understand why so many youth in our church don't see any problem with people changing their gender every other day, dating people who are the same sex or identify as no gender. At ward or stake youth activities, I am asked my pronouns, or at school, I am asked to dance with a girl who thinks she is a boy. I know we are supposed to love everyone and show them respect, and I always do. I just feel that there is a line being crossed. I wish we heard more talk from church leaders about this problem.
This is a letter from a young woman who is about the age of the high school seniors in this audience. Why does her letter strike me so profoundly? She wants to do what is right, but she feels surrounded by values and behaviors she feels to be wrong, and she just doesn't know what to do about it. She wants to stand for truth, but she doesn't know how to do it with love. In a devotional to young adults at Ensign College, Elder Clark G. Gilbert and I described this challenge of standing fast with love while proclaiming the truth. We can still love others and find common ground without compromising the truths we know. In Amy's letter, she writes about church friends who are confused about their gender, a condition called gender dysphoria. This confusion can assume different forms at different times in a person's life. Affected persons and family members should therefore take the long view.
A major victory for Satan.
Trav is doing good, so I'm in full-on fury and wrath mode right now, wanting all cell phones to be banned and destroyed. God. Waited an hour and a half for an important phone call, only to have it interrupted by an advertiser who somehow was able to track when I was getting a phone call to interrupt the phone call. I'm too technologically ignorant to figure out how to get rid of the... And so I lost the other phone call, and so I had to call back, and then it was even longer wait time. And so I have to wait till tomorrow now. So upset. So, let's talk about something that gets other people so upset. President Dallin H. Oaks name-calling LGBTQ as mentally retarded. Oh, right, they don't use that technological term anymore in psychology. They now say you have a mental illness. And technically, they've changed it to a mental behavior problem. To God. Psychology is a fraud. They are a dangerous, deadly fraud who name call, label in order to drum up business. And they've found something, they've finally succeeded in drumming up a lifestyle they've always dreamed about. LGBTQ. And Oaks gave the definition of what psychologists call LGBTQ. And I don't think LGBTQ fully understand this, because certainly the left-wing media is not understanding this. Because they get psychologists on their shows talking about LGBTQ issues and about how people need to accept them and not cause the sense of unease, which is part of the definition. And so it will be in the video and will be the thumbnail picture, most likely. Or I could just put Oaks and have him give some kind of a hate comment. We'll see. Gender dysphoria is a term. It's a psychological term, which means they created it out of nothing. They caused the problem, then bullied the label to force their victims to accept the label and thus self-fulfill the label. This is how evil psychologists are. That describes a sense of unease that a person may have because of a mismatch between their scientific biological sex and their sexual identity, not gender identity. It's the same word as sex. They're just different words from different language origins for the same meaning. Gender is sex. Sex is gender. But people want to change definitions to cause confusion and a sense of unease. And so, yes, the scientific biological sex is simple. Humans sexually reproduce, which means there are males and females. Males have sperm, females have egg. And the union of the sperm with the egg produces the offspring. That is human sexual identity. There is no other gender or sex identity. And thus genealogy charts Yeah, it's only for the scientific, biological male and female that produces offspring. However, you would think, as a lawyer, working under a medical doctor, a real scientist, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints would use the scientific argument to explain to Mormons why marriage is between a biological male and female. Nope. Nope. They use what's referred to in logical argument as an unsound argument, a fallacy argument. To use psychology, as he used gender dysphoria, mixed with religion. God told us. And therefore, everyone must obey, regardless of whether you're a Mormon or not. It's just sick and wrong. And so, yes, this is a very sensitive topic because we had a certain hostage in Russia released and got to play their first WNBA game since being released. And I think the team lost, but they was the top scorer. Yeah, no duh. It's just like the swimming event, where the first transgender replaces a woman, because that's what transgenders are doing in sports. They're replacing a woman who would have been normally placed in that position. And it's going to be made worse because it'll no longer be women's sports anymore. It'll be transgender sports. And then what will women do? They're back to being excluded from playing sports again. This is the trap that psychologists set for you guys. Because it triggers MAGA elite. They go bonkers. They want blood. They want war. This is the one thing that they are fully behind science with. Though they technically don't even use that as the argument, as Oakes didn't either. Because oftentimes they all of a sudden find Jesus and use Jesus as their excuse. You know, like Vice President Pence did with Buttigieg. Just so much ignorance in this world that leads to hate. We are all human beings. Nobody should be assaulted and discriminated against. We didn't need to create LGBTQ to protect people. But America has had a long problem with sexual behaviors that are not approved by the religious dominant populace. As there's been many court cases that have caused the problem. You know, you get a search warrant for a house and you get in and you find that two men are in the bed together and the cops are bigots. Problems ensue. So, do they have the right to arrest them for being gay? Or shoot them for being gay? in the course of their doing their job, and other many such problems over the histories of America here. But this was blatant hatred from Oakes. It's bad enough that psychologists have screwed this all up so that they can profit off of it. So that the Nazis, who were given asylum by America to work with the CIA to do this right now, are not being held accountable because most of them are dead. They've been able to brainwash their successors. As I hope that all people in the field of psychology, therapists, caseworkers, counselors, all believe that they are a legitimate field and are trying to do good. But Natasha Helfer exposed this all and the big problem, not just with psychology, but with the church. She worked for the church. She's here in Utah. She got excommunicated and fired because she came out and said masturbation is okay, LGBTQ is okay, and pornography is not addictive. She was right on 2 of the 3. But the church excommunicated her because they disapprove of all 3. And she justified the masturbation and pornography with an appeal to the medical profession, real science, and then refused to use science for LGBTQ as it is defined here. And so in excommunicating her, we see that the church are bullies, that when somebody says something in the Mormon church that they disapprove of, they retaliate. And fortunately for all the rest of you, the church only excommunicates you or forces you to leave because you're so horrified of how evil they are. But no, with me, I came at them with science. Joseph Smith is an actual translator. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, and I got death threats. I did the video not too long ago of the 3 attempts to use poison on me, to murder me. So I guess I'm a righteous man because I haven't been harmed by poison. It's gotta hurt them. Because that's why they were doing it that way. That's why Brigham Young used poison on Samuel Smith. Is because of that scripture that Joseph Smith gave in the Doctrine and Covenants, which comes from the Bible, and that's why you got the snake charmer religions. I can handle snakes! Until one of them, it was like a couple years ago, I think. He was a snake handler, a religion, and he got bit, and he died. I think that religion's no longer true. But yeah, that's why they did it, is to mock Joseph's church, to show that Brigham Young's the rightful authority to lead, as Joseph is a fallen prophet. And so with the fallen prophet authority, Brigham Young assumes authority as just the president of missionaries. And so yeah, it's just awful. as he then, instead of he calls it gender identity challenged. Oh my God. You know you're a bigot when I have friends who are LGBTQ. I can't be a bigot. I have a friend who's a Jew. I have a friend who's black. I have a friend who's a woman. I'm not a white supremacist. No, not at all. They just never learn. They never learn. White supremacists are dumb. They're dumb. That's why they're so hateful. But he also brought up a different topic, which was one I brought up in the previous video on taking away women's agency, and that is same-gender attraction. So if you hadn't noticed in the description below, the first video that I did that evening had a Reba McEntire song. And then all day today, I'm using Martina McBride's song. Can you guess why? Is there a pattern that both of those women share, other than being women, as to why I would select them? Redheads. That is my sexual attraction. And I've known about it because it was a culturally developed sexual attraction. And because I identified the source of my sexual attraction for redheads, I then came to understand and appreciate the beauty and loveliness of blondes, brunettes, dark-haired, short-haired, long-haired, no-haired women. But I still have that dominant attraction for redheads. But it doesn't mean that if I choose a blonde to marry, that I don't love her. I married her. I wouldn't have married her if I didn't love her. And so I don't know if this is kind of, it's not quite the same. It's almost a false equivalency, but it gives you an idea. In the movie trilogy of K-9, James Belushi, right? Because John Belushi was the one who died of a drug overdose, right? It's James Belushi, isn't it? The one who's still alive. He was a cop and was put with a K-9 unit, and so he had a dog with him in the three shows. And the third one is it's time for both of them to retire. They're getting a little old. And so Jerry, the name of the dog, is recommended to become a breeder. And so he goes to a professional breeder, and Jerry just doesn't have an interest. And it's strange because he saw Jerry totally rape a cute little poodle in her vehicle. And so he got the idea, why not dress up was it a Labrador? Is that what they are? Whichever kind of dog Jerry is, they got a female equivalent, and dressed her up as a poodle. And sure enough, Jerry had no problems after that. You know, cosplay, is that the fetish? But yeah, that was the dog's sexual attraction, poodles. because of the remembrance of the one poodle he fell in love with. And so that's where that comes from. And it's all different for every guy, because every guy has a different experience in life. And you need to understand the difference between your scientific, biological necessity versus what gets triggered in your brain when it's time to release. Again, it's necessary that we all get taught proper sex ed. And by not being properly taught sex ed, women don't understand this, and men don't understand it, as the church leaders purposely lied to us, as they somehow forgot when they were young, and forgot how they were when they are old. Just forgot on purpose, because they have a wife, so everything's fine for them. Hey, angry dog. Perfect timing. If you've not seen the videos where I talk about a potential computer app game of angry dogs, where you have to make the dog happy in order to win the game. That dog is not being happy. So yes, my wrath over the phone is a separate issue. They're unrelated. And so yes, if the church would be honest, as medical science has determined that pornography does not harm children, is not addictive, that if they properly taught sex ed through the science, you'd understand why a belief that pornography is addictive is idol worship. Because pornography, in the modern definition, creation of it, has been around since the beginning of men and women. In fact, the woman is actually described as being formed as a statue, as an idol. And so, yeah, it's absurd when you get people who use fallacy arguments to try to prove that they're correct, when all they're doing is spewing hate. And the sad reality is that too many women are, what was the word? It's not just LGBTQ. Too many women have a sense of unease about their own bodies, that they don't feel attractive, even though men are demonstrating that they're attracted to them. And it's sad to see women afraid of men because they don't understand, or women who go as lambs to the slaughter and don't take warnings seriously, and women who get bullied by their female peers to shame themselves and shame their bodies and have eating disorders that result from it. And then psychologists come in to victim blame them and tell them that their eating disorder is now a mental illness. They're mentally retarded too. God. just so much evil in the world. And there's just too many victims. And unfortunately, even some of the victims become the bullies themselves, that they get weaponized. And that's what I see the church doing to women and men. They weaponize them against each other. That was the previous one. And so this Amy, as he called her, who wrote him a letter, is confused as to how to deal with these immoral people in her life. And Oakes refused to talk about Joseph Smith's doctrine on the matter, because Amy didn't have any kind of threat whatsoever. You know, it didn't sound like she was being propositioned by other women to turn lesbian. And and so again, you know, to have an attraction is fine. But when you start thinking that you've got to control other people's agency to live your lifestyle, standards, values, as he did bring out the Strength of the Youth pamphlet, so thus he weaponized the youth and called it love. And that's the thing, is that the Pence-Buttigieg argument, they both appealed to deity, which is a fallacious argument. Deity is the supernatural, which means it's not real, it's not scientific. Neither one of them are right. They were both arguing a ridiculous argument. But Pence was the abusive one, because he chose to say that God hates rather than loves. And that's what the church is doing. They say that if you love God, you will obey God, and God hates. And so then you, by hating LGBTQ, are actually loving them, to justify what Oakes is doing at that devotional and in previous talks that he's given and about religious freedom and that anti-gay stance that he has, as with the Boy Scouts, gay marriage law, and with the Prop 8 and the Respect for Marriage Act. So yeah, it just becomes a big old powder keg of problems because of that. So we're done with that page. And so yeah, he is correct. The church is responsible to teach truth, and they're just not doing it. They're claiming that their truth comes from the Holy Ghost, which comes from God, which comes from the prophets. That was the title of it, Stand for Truth. And he said, I'm a lawyer, that's what I do. I was strictly obedient to the law. No, you were strictly obedient to your interpretation of the law. Just as you're telling the youth that you are strictly obedient to your interpretation of your God that you created, so that you can hate people and call it love, like a white supremacist does. Because I've had those comments. People saying, I'm not a white supremacist, I'm just for my family. In other words, the white master race. They think that by changing words and changing definitions of words that they can get away with their hatred. It's just stupid. All of it is just stupid. Nobody is using science. And now even they're trying to change science. Oh, it's not really science. Yes, it is. Because science means you're using the scientific methodology of logical argument from the Socratic method to develop theories that get tested for confirmation and replication. That's what it means when someone's supposed to say science. But instead, you get all these church paid for studies about how porn hurts children and that medical marijuana is harmful. And that LGBTQ must be electroshock treated, which has never produced a conversion. It's only caused suffering and fear. It should be banned. And it was finally banned in 2001 here in Utah. But the church wanted it back. I wonder what they want it back for. The Millennial Kingdom? And so, yeah, I'll repeat it again. Nazi Germany did this. Don't let history repeat itself. They identified through label making who was gay. And then when Nazi Germany took over, they now identified who was gay and locked them up and tortured them to death, just like the Jews. And so Utah, oh, you're LGBTQ and you get to have it put on your driver's license that way? So that all government agencies can now identify you as LGBTQ? And the church wants their kingdom back, and the church is anti-LGBTQ? You don't see what's coming? You don't see how history is about to repeat itself. And then it gets worse. And we're also using psychology, as the asylum was given to the psychologists to work with the CIA here in America to destroy us. Get revenge for winning the war. But Russia also, they used psychologists that they acquired, giving asylum, to lock up political opponents. Said, oh, you're the label of schizophrenic. It doesn't exist. It's a fake thing. It's used to lock up people they hate and who they disapprove of. And so, yeah, if you have problems where you think you're seeing things that aren't really there, that's not schizophrenia. That's Parkinson's or dementia or Alzheimer's. I'm not sure what medical conditions they would be. I would consult a medical doctor, but it is not a mental illness, a mental retardation. So my laundry is telling me I'm done with this video.